explaining.
Okay. Torah, page test. Okay. The bottom of the first column. Now, the Rebbe is explaining that based on what he's explaining, that the Maamarim allow a Jew to reach a level greater than he was before because of the difficulties, and because this transformation of darkness to light. Okay, thank you. Therefore, we can understand what Chazal say. One turn or 1 hour of Torah mitzvahs in this world, and that's the level of the water, the Maamarim, elevating the teva, the ark, meaning elevating the words of Torah and Tefillah. And he says, okay, 4 lines in the end of the first paragraph, and 4 lines in the end of the first column, on page 10. Therefore, the waters are called Naicha Derucha, Shubchinas Shabbos, which is a level of Shabbos, like it says, Kivei Shabbos Mikol Malachte. That Hashem rested from everything that he did. Meaning, the 6 days of creation, what is the 6 days of creation? This is where we left off, we got off in this conversation, is where Hashem comes into the world, he lowers himself into the 6 days of creation. So in other words, in the first day Hashem revealed himself in Chesed, second day Gvura, Teferes, until Shabbos. That means Hashem is lowering himself into the aspect of creator, means he's associated with world. They're called the days of action. Why? Because Hashem is lowering himself, Kaviyachol, into the world of action, to create it. But Shabbos is the second column. But Shabbos so is resting from work, and the peace of the spirit, which is the elevation of the worlds from the level of limited creation to the level of infinite. In other words, like this: when a person works, they build something, then they get tired. Why do they get tired? Because the power they have went into the object they made. Therefore you get tired. So what happens when you go to rest? So your powers come back. The same thing. Hashem lowered himself into the 6 days of creation. It's a lokus coming down into world. Shabbos Hashem rested, i.e. the powers of world become elevated. That's how Chassidus explains. Vayichulu hashemayim va'aretz doesn't only mean he finished. Vayichulu, the word of kiloyin, of longing, that the world actually on Shabbos elevates itself to a level higher than creation.
Hashem gets tired?
No, it's kaviyachol. That's why it doesn't mean resting, that Hashem at the end of the day wants. He ceases to deal with limited world. Resting means, again, Hashem didn't have a bed, he went to sleep. Resting by a person means your powers come back. The powers you put into creation left you. Now you're getting them back, right? So what does it mean by Hashem? The powers are coming back to infinite level of Hashem. Making it so it is also during the week when a person works in Parnas and all that stuff. It's called the flood waters. Right? They want to get a person away from Torah mitzvahs. So therefore, like you said before, unlike the misconception of Balabatim, that means they think they can't daven, but on the contrary, they can daven even better because they have this advantage of transforming darkness to light that other people don't. And Balabati means people that don't sit and learn a whole day, people that do something for a living. So then, because it says through Tefillah, because by the way, Tefillah says in Chassidus, where do you have Shabbos every day? The level of Shabbos every day is davening. Doesn't Shabbos elevates the world? And so davening elevates all the things of the day. It elevates it to a higher level. So then that's called Naicha Derucha. which is the level of Shabbos. So he says, all the davening of the 6 days of creation is a hard, and Bechina Shabbos is a revelation of Shabbos. Chassidus explains, the daily Shabbos is the level of davening. When a person, so to speak, secludes himself from the world, he's not dealing anymore with world, he's dealing with learning and davening.
So Shabbat's elevated, and then he drops back, or he goes to the next level.
No. The way it works is, it goes up, then it drops to a level, lower, a little bit lower, but not as low as the first level. Then it goes higher, lower, higher. Every week it becomes elevated.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
Even in my case?
There's exceptions to the rule. That's the lower level of Shabbos. Everything you spoke now is the lower level of Shabbos. There's a higher level of Shabbos. Mashiach's era is an era of entirely Shabbos. Now you have Shabbos once a week and you have 6 days. La'asalavi, it's all the level of Shabbos. Meaning, okay? He says that's why Hashem swore, spiritually speaking, Hashem swore he's not going to bring the flood anymore. What does that mean? What's wrong with the Mabel? The way Chassidus explains the flood, that it purified the world, it's good. So why is Hashem swearing I'm never going to bring the Mabel again? That doesn't seem too good, according to Chassidus. He says, even though the flood came to purify the world, but you don't always need purification. If you're not tummy, you don't need purification. And therefore, this aspect of purification, Hashem is not going to bring anymore because the world lost of love will be pure. Yeah, so that's 1 second. He's going to say, therefore, Hashem said, I'm going to swear not to be angry. And this, by the way, this level of mikvah that the Mabul did was a level of mikvah that removes impurity. It's not a level of adding purity. Adding kedusha. A person who's not, the Kohen Gadol went to the mikvah 5 times in Yom Kippur. He didn't become impure each time. Why did you go 5 times? I mean, okay, once, whatever. But 5 times? Mikvah does 2 things. Mikvah removes impurity, and mikvah adds kedusha. The whole, for instance, in like a swimming pool, yeah, for a man, removes impurity. The question is, does it also add purity? So there's a whole discussion in Allah. According to many opinions, it adds kedusha also.
For women or men?
No, for men. For women, it's not kosher. So he says, Kihine av shemavor l'mayl shayidei b'china s'nai man nasi yis'na'er. He says, so now the Alter Rebbe is adding a question. Not only did Mayim Rabbim purify the world, but the Alter Rebbe explained before, only through Mayim Rabbim do you reach a level higher than you would before, without it. So how is that going to be lost of love? We're going to be losing the Mayim Rabbim that elevates us to a level higher than we would normally. So what's with that level? He said, you're not going to need it. Why? Because there's going to be such a revelation from above that you don't need the accomplishments of the Mayim Rabbim to add more Kedusha, because transformation of darkness to light, La'aseh Love, you won't need that level, because the revelation from above will have that too. He says, even though he explained before, will become a greater level of order from cheshach that otherwise kedusha itself doesn't have. He says, there's a level of ava from above, even from the level of ava that comes to Mayim Rabbim. In other words, like this, there's a level of kedusha. Then there's a level of kedusha that's even greater than that comes through down here, through darkness, through Mayim Rabim. Then he says, and that also comes to a greater level of relationship with Hashem, the greater level of Ava, than without it, like Yeshiva Bachrim, right? Then you have, though, a third level of Ava that is so great that it's even greater than the level of Ava that a person's Avaida could reach. Yeah.
How you get
Relax. Relax. In awakening from above, it's okay. We learned already many times. There's the Avaida of the Jew, and there's a revelation from above. Isarusa is Aramaic for awakening. Hisaydidus, awakening. There's an awakening that comes from below. There's an awakening that comes from above. Okay? When the Jew does Torah mitzvahs, that's our Avaida, that causes a revelation from above. Hashem reacts to the action. Okay? But what gives us the ability to be able to do Torah mitzvahs? That comes from awakening from above. Like we learned in many times, at the beginning of Vayikra, the introduction to Korbanos, which comes from the word Karov, meaning a person becoming closer to Hashem. So the pasuk opens up like this: Vayikra el Moshe, Hashem called to Moshe, meaning revelation from above, God calling to Moshe. And then the pasuk says, Adam ki yakriv mikem korban Hashem. If a person will bring from yourself a korban to Hashem. Right? So Chassidus explains that in that Maimah Adam ki yakriv, famous Maimah at the beginning of Likutei Torah, that Adam ki yakriv means, Vayikra Moshe means, in order for a person to wake up to do something, to want to do something, there has to be an awakening from above. In different language, the voice that comes out from heaven, from Har Sinai, every day comes out the voice and says, do tshuva, or the voice that, woe is to people that shame God, all those things. The voice every day comes out from Har Sinai. And the Chassidus asks the question, we don't hear it, I don't hear it, you probably don't hear it either, because nobody hears it. So the answer, so why is a voice coming out from Har Sinai, Har Chodev, if nobody hears it? What's the purpose? It's like talking to your kids. Why are you talking? Don't hear it anyway. So the answer is, the neshama does hear it. And that voice that comes out from heaven, from Har Chodev, can stimulate the person to do good. So therefore you have like this. You have a revelation from above, Sarusa de Leila, that stimulates the Sarusa de Lasata, the awakening Araveda, which awakens the Mayim Rabim, awakening to a greater level of love from above. Okay. Then there's a level of Sarusa de Leila, the Alter Rebbe is explaining here, and it's mentioned many places all over Chassidus, that there's an awakening from above that's even greater than the awakening from above that a Jew could do through Avodah. Because an awakening that's affected by the Jew's Avodah means it connected technically to that level, cause and effect. If my Avodah causes the revelation from above, so that revelation from above is based on my Avodah. So yes, it's a revelation from above, but it's still connected to my Avodah, what I'm doing.
So is that more limited?
It's greater than the initial awakening from above, because that was from above, right? And therefore it's like this lighter, the spark, if you don't have a keli for it right away, it's going to disappear. So, but even when you make a keli, and then you have a revelation of godliness from above, like it says, the Mayim Rabim that creates this greater level of love from above, but because my Avodah is causing it to happen, that means that it's connected still to my Avodah, still cause and effect. Then there's a level of godliness that is so great that your Avodah doesn't even reach it. It's a gift from above that's even greater than the level of awakening from above, i.e. love of Hashem, that is accomplished through your Avodah. Where do you see this? By Pesach was a revelation from above. The Jews were naked, like it says in Haggadah, naked from mitzvahs. At Erim ve'erya, You're meaning void for mitzvahs. Pesach was a revelation from above. Then the Jews did avodah, 49 days of the Omer, elevating every level. Then the 50th day is a level of revelation that avodah doesn't reach. It's a gift from above. That's one of the reasons why it's called Matan Torah. That revelation is a gift from above that your avodah really can't reach.
But that gift is for the 49 days of Avodah?
Correct. In other words, but the level of revelation is not depending on your avodah. It's like, to give you an example, it's a bonus. Bonus is not based on what you performed, but because you performed, you got paid. But the bonus is a gift. It's not based on what you, so to speak, what you did. It stimulated it.
Stimulus check.
A stimulus check. Yeah. That's a very bad thing. Nobody wants to work because of that.
Yeah.
Now, therefore, you have like this. In spirituality, you have Memala Kol Almin, that's our Aveda. And then you have Sefer Kol Almin, which is the encompassing Aveda. But even then, it's still called Sefer Kol Almin. It's surrounding the world, meaning, yes, it's above world, but connected to world. Then you have, like it says, and then there's a level of elokus that's infinitely greater than all that. There's only God. And that's why you have in life food, clothing, and shelter. Food digests internally. Clothing surround you, but they have to be your size. It's not internalized, it's encompassing you, but it still has to fit you. And then you have houses, one size fits all. Because that's the 3 levels of godliness in the world. So here the Alter Rebbe is saying that there's La'as Lavi is the real Shabbos. Now, the Aveda Maamarim causes the tahar of the Mabul, meaning the level of Shabbos, Noach, Naich Le'ela, that the world becomes elevated. But then La'as Lavi, that's why Hashem swore He's never going to bring the flood again. Because La'as Lavi, we're not going to be losing that, because until now, the Alter Rebbe explained, through Mayim Rabim, you reach a level that you wouldn't be reaching in Gan Eden. But so why aren't we going to lose out that level? The answer is because then there's going to be a revelation even higher than the level of Gan Eden. Now you work, you go to Gan Eden. Yeah? But that's okay, very nice. But there's a higher level than Gan Eden. And that's the level of Mashiach. And he says, and that level of love is going to be revealed when Mashiach comes. He says, which is the level of Chesed Elyon. There comes a gift from above, and it's even greater, and he says, the Gavaya Ma'ed, it's going to be even greater than B'chol Me'idecha.
Higher.
It's even going to be super great. Okay, this mimer is finished.
Rabbi, is it possible that every person reaches Mashiach at different times?
No.
If I get to that level, I reach Mashiach, but the other person may not be at that level. Or is the whole world at the same time reaching?
The whole world.
Person.
Okay. Well, when Mashiach comes, there's going to be this super great revelation. But even then, Moshe Rabbeinu and Tzaddikim are going to handle it differently than us. Because, okay, to give an example, remember, Emunah begins where Seichel ends. Okay, something you understand, you don't believe. Right? So therefore, something you understand, you don't have to believe. So where does your belief begin? Where you don't understand anymore. Now, a greater person who understands more, their Emunah begins on a higher level. Their Emunah begins on a higher level. So, even La'asud Love, because those tzaddikim are totally refined, even though everybody, kulam yedo eisi miktanav ad g'deilim, it says everybody's gonna, the pasuk says about Mashiach, tchita meis, everybody's gonna know me from the lowest to the youngest, to the oldest, and the lowest to the highest, and all that. But there'll still be a difference between the Rebbe and Moshe and all those people understanding, handling the revelation of Mashiach. It's like you have a big light in the room. Everybody gets light differently, but everybody is reacting differently. It's the same light, I guess. Figure it out when Mashiach comes.
That's the first time you sounded like you're speculating. You always say it very definitively.
I always speculate, but sometimes just try to sound definitive.
All the neshamos.
We had a Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Yisrael Friedman, all of us. It was fantastic. We had him in Newark. Anyway, he used to give us a bracha. His shir was very interesting. He used to come in the way his shir in Newark was this the higher level base medrash. He would read the Gemara when he gave a class. Yeah, he would read the Gemara and then he would tell us to say the tesis inside of the Gemara. And his uniqueness was that when you started saying the tesis, he started making you so crazy. He showed you that you didn't know what you're talking about. Mama showed that you didn't know talk. And then he taught us how to learn so he actually taught us how to learn. It was fantastic. Anyway, so he used to give us a bracha. His bracha was, you should know from problems like you know the Gemara. You should know of problems like you know the Gemara.
Oh.
Basically, he said, just like you don't know the Gemara, you should never know problems. That was his bracha to us. It's a pretty good bracha because we didn't know. Anyway, okay, so he says now like this. Then the pasuk continues, this is a continuation of the pasuk of Maamarim. So it says, ish eskol hein beise be'ava beise vusule. If the person will give all the fortune of his house with ava beise vusule, it will be like sheep to him. Explained before in the previous what the Maamarim we just learned. Maamarim refers to the daigas of Parnasa. But the pasuk says two things. Maamarim lo yuchol lechabes esava. The great waters, the powerful waters cannot extinguish the love. Unahares lo yishtafor. And the rivers were not flooded out. So the pasuk saying two things. So he said he didn't explain it before, now without Rabbi saying it. Maamarim refers to the worries of Parnasa. Now what does it mean the rivers will not flood it out? The rivers are not as powerful as the Maamarim, obviously. Naharis leishtafu, he says, refers to the thoughts of Gashmiistic things. He says, B'Shem Naharis, why is thoughts called rivers? Because your thought is always working. You can never stop thinking.
That's right.
Yeah? Okay, good. I'm glad you agree with him. It's not bad. Once a year, he agrees. Naharis Leishtafu means thought, the thoughts of worldly things will never extinguish this or drown out this love of Hashem. He says, but the water, Maamarim, stands in one place. What's the difference between an ocean and a river? An ocean doesn't flow. It has waves, but the ocean is a lake. It's not, huh?
Stagnant.
It's not it's not actually stagnated, but it stays in one place. And rivers always flow. So it cannot extinguish the love that you has to Hashem. Dafka through the Maamarim, Dafka through the rivers, the level of Bechoma Eidecha. Like you said before in the previous Maamar. Then you have the level of Mashiach, which is even greater than that level. What does it mean, the wealth of his house? That refers to Chochma Satera. Okay? There's a level of river in Kedusha also. Now, at the beginning of last week's Parsha, the beginning over there, it says, Nohar Yetze Me'eden, a river came out from Eden, lahashkis sagan, to water the gan. Okay? So remember, in other words, then there was Eden and there was Gan. The Medrash says there was no, because the Parsha says the river came out of Eden to water the Gan. That means it's not Gan Eden one level. There is Eden and there's Gan. So he says that level of Nahar, Yetzim Eden, to water the Gan, it says in Medrash and Kabbalah Chassidus, Gan is 53, Nun Gimel, which represents the 53 Parshias of Torah, the 53 Sedras in Torah. The river that comes out from Gan, that's the level of Chochmah, that waters Torah, which is the level of Chochmah. So he says, Hein basis called Chochmah Sateh, which is Perush, V'tamir Mitzvah, Shenim Shum Mechin Chochmah Sidbar, they come from the level of Chochmah. Or Kamaima, like it said, or Kameshir Kosov. Nor Yetzim Eden, Lahashkis Sagan, meaning Eden is the level of Chochmah. That calls Eden Yetzim Nahar. Comes the Hamshacha from Chochmah, Lahashkis Sagan, which are Gan Sedorim Deraisa, the 53 Sedras of Chumash, Shem Pirushi V'tamia Mitzvahs, which are the reason for the mitzvahs. By the way, you know it's interesting. There's Parsha and there's Sedra.
What's the second?
Sedra. Okay? So, the truth is, people speak incorrectly. The Sedra is the whole Brachis, Noach, Lech Lecha. Each one is called the Sedra. Each Sedra has Parshas, paragraphs. They have Parsha Psuchim, Parsha Stuma. You have a Parsha that begins from the beginning of a line, that's called Parsha Psucha. And then you have Stuma that begins on the same line, 9 letters of empty space. You begin the lead, you'll notice, right? There's a new paragraph that begins on a new line, there's a new paragraph that begins on the same line 9 letters later. Those are called Parshias. Sedra is the Sedra Bereshis, and when you say it's Parshas Bereshis, it's not correct really. Everybody speaks like that. But it's Sedra Bereshis, Sedra of Noach. Parsha Bereshis has maybe 20 Parshias in it.